All right, it looks like we're live. I'm just going to open the chat window so that people can say hello if they're there. Right, it looks like we're live. We're good. Okay, excellent. Right, we are live. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if anybody's there or not. I think we should be able to see if anyone has signed up. Oh, we've got 10 viewers, it says at the bottom. Good morning, the people who are there. If you can hear me and see me clearly, could you just put a comment in the chat window to the right that you should be seeing and just say hello or yes, we can hear you, or speak up, love, just so that I know I'm getting through.
Yep, Tim says.
Tim says, oh, excellent.
Here, good morning.
Okay, good morning, Tim. And good morning, everybody else. So how many people have we got? Are we expecting? We've got 56, it says. Oh, hello, someone else saying good morning. Hi.
I think we can just start.
And we can just get started? Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome to this webinar. It's brought to you by the Local Government Association in association with, that's a really clumsy phrasing, sorry about that, with the Open Data Institute. I'm Lucy Knight, and I am, the reason it's me doing this, threefold. One, I work in local government. I've been in local government for the last 15 years. I started as a data analyst, database administrator, and I've moved into performance and strategy, and also I'm leading on data and open data at Devon County Council. Secondly, I am an Open Data Institute registered trainer, so they figure I'm comfortable talking to lots of people, even if I can't see them. I know you're out there, right? And thirdly, I'm part of the Open Data Institute node network, so I help to run the ODI Devon node. So hopefully, I can talk to you about this material and answer your questions. If I can't answer a question, I will open the door to the room that I'm in and scream for help. Somebody out there will be able to help. So do ask questions. With me today is Emily. Emily, say hello.
Hiya.
That's Emily. Emily's going to keep an eye on questions incoming and nudge me if I go over time, and generally manage me whilst I'm doing this. If you have any questions at all, now you can do that in three ways. You can put it into the chat window and Emily will give me a nudge. You can comment through Knowledge Hub if you're logged into Knowledge Hub. If you're not already logged in right now, now's probably not the time to start, so stick with the chat window. If neither of those methods work for you, then email in using training@theodi.org email address, and whichever way, it'll reach me and I will stop and answer any questions that you've got. We've been asked to make sure we mention, if you have any feedback at all about the webinar, about the e-learning module, about anything that you hear today, Local Government Association would love to hear from you, and the email address for that is transparency@local.gov.uk. And I think we'll probably send something out to make sure that people have got that. So if you didn't get that, transparency@local.gov.uk. Right, looking down my list of things. So we're going to spend about 20 minutes working through the e-learning module material. And then once I've done that, then we'll just open it up to another 40 minutes or so for questions or any discussion that you want to start, anything you want to know more about. I have mentioned about asking questions. Do we have any questions at all before we get started? Anybody have anything they'd like to know about before we get started? Anything there, Emily? No?
There's the small delay, but I think we can probably just start.
All right then. So everyone is logged in. I think no one has any questions. So I'm going to now switch over to screen share, and my screen goes a bit weird when we do this, but I'm going to screen share the actual material from the e-learning module. Now, allowing for sort of a second or so delay, can everybody see what's on my screen? So you should now see Making Your Data Work for You Local Government Association logo at the beginning of the e-learning module. Can everybody see that?
Did you click share?
Did I click share? I didn't click share. This is why Emily's in the room. My entire screen, there we go, share. Yeah, it goes weird. Right, there we go, we'll try that. Right, how about now?
There we go.
Right. Enthusiastic way from Tim. Thank you, Tim. It's good that you're having a good time. Right, so there's a whole series of these e-learning modules around data and open data in government, and this is quite a short one, but I think a really helpful one. This one is to help you get started thinking about how you make your data work for you. And we're not just talking about open data that gets published, but just data in general within the council. These modules are about showing you the things that are already happening and the impact that it can have for you. Now this one covers, and if I just quite slowly scroll down, we've got a little bit of an introduction there about the role of data in local government. And we've got something about some tools that can help you to manage your data better and use it better. Excuse me, we're going to talk about the local data maturity model, which I think could be extremely useful. And then, as with all of these modules at the end, there are some quick questions. And these aren't for catching people out, these are just for checking your understanding and making you think a little bit about the material that came before. And then obviously it goes on to, well, what would be next? What's the next thing you might want to think about, and the modules that follow on from this one. So just back up to the top quickly. The background section after the introduction here, we all know the background. The background is there isn't any money, really. We're all subject to austerity. It's been very, very tough. We've lost people and we've lost skills, and it's not necessarily a great time to be trying to do new and exciting things when we have to focus on keeping the lights on and on delivering services to some of the most vulnerable people in our communities. So it can be hard to stick your hand up in a meeting and say, hey, I've got a great idea. And why don't we just mess around and try to do some new fun things with data? It can be very difficult. But one of the side effects of austerity measures is that we have had to focus down very hard on our purpose and on the evidence that shows we're getting the right things done. So what are we actually here for? We've had to really focus on that and think hard about that. And how do we know if we're succeeding? And this is where better, more effective use of our data is going to help us. Now, traditionally, in the sector, our data has been a byproduct, an exhaust product of delivering the services. We collect and we use just what we need to get the job done, and maybe a little bit extra on top so that we can report up to central government, good old KPIs. And that's pretty much been an end to it. And maybe we've saved some stuff and archived some stuff, but the data hasn't been an asset, it's been just a product that we use in the course of getting that service delivered effectively. But we are beginning to find some new ways to use and to analyse the data through necessity, to look at whether we could be doing things differently, to look at where we could be doing things more efficiently. And also we're finding along the open data agenda that more and more people are interested in using some of our data in ways that we couldn't have really even dreamed of. So for community benefit, for economic stimulus, and they would like that data from us. And we are having to consider, actually, is our data in a fit state to be shared? And although this module is not about open data specifically, for me it all ties in that if we have good quality data that is discoverable, it's tidy, it's structured, it's machine readable, it's validated, and it's as usable as it can possibly be, then yes, obviously some of that we can publish, but also it makes it so much easier for us to be using ourselves internally for sharing with colleagues, for sharing with partners. And it makes it so much easier to mash it up, stitch it up with other data sets if we've done that work to get good data. So I am passionate about having good data and then opening up what we can. But it starts with having good data. And as an analyst of many years standing, the bane of my life was always having to manually process and tidy up data I'd been given to make it usable. And I'm sure a lot of you out there feel the same. So just checking, have we got, can everybody see and hear? I'm seeing a couple of comments saying I can't see anything yet.
It's okay.
Yeah, well, we'll just keep going and hope that everybody keeps up with us. So thinking differently about how we use our data and the other things we could be doing with our data might mean that we need some new skills and some new tools. And I've written a note for this that just says, in big letters, don't panic. Okay, it's not that complicated. It can seem that way, but if the people I'm talking to now are performance people, are analysts, you'll know that there are magical things you can do even with a simple tool as a spreadsheet. And there are a lot of other tools that are now available that are quite intuitive to use, and more importantly, they're free. There's a lot of free and open source stuff on the market at the moment that we can use to do some of the jobs we need to do, and I can talk a little bit more about those a bit later on. But the main message for you all is this is all doable. And that even if you're not totally 100% sure where to start, there is a lot of support So, I mean, I've already mentioned Local Government Association, who've got some fantastic things that we can use. Open Data Institute, more than happy to help councils with tools that will help them open up their data. And there are networks of support. So if you don't already know about people like Local Gov Digital, which is a network of council people, you definitely should look them up and talk to them. Because there's like nothing better than sharing knowledge and sharing ideas and tools that they've used. And there are others, and we can talk about those later on if people want to ask questions. So that's the background bit: austerity, decreasing budget, innovation, new insights. I don't think there are any surprises there. Any questions so far, Emily, through any of the various routes?
Don't think so.
No questions so far. Okay, I will move on to the section about tools that enable better data use. So I thought this was interesting. The language has been very carefully chosen here: increased utilization of data. So sometimes that word is used as a posh alternative to using. The correct usage here is exactly right. It is about using the data in a way that you didn't actually intend when you originally collected it. So what else can we do with it? We've collected this stuff and we've used it to make sure that a service is delivered, but what else? How else can we stitch it together? How else can we make it useful? The dreaded word silos is in here. Local government has operated in silos. Well, yes. And that's sometimes necessary, and that's sometimes right, that we have a focus specifically on a particular group of people who need us, on the service that they need. But we can get better at sharing information, sharing knowledge across those services. And one thing that I always do say, no matter what we're talking about here, and however technical it gets, however much it's about data, first and foremost, it is about people. And it's about talking to the other people in your organization who have information, who have data, and who have business needs which could be resolved with data. So get out and talk to people and find out what people have and what they know and what they need, because you will make a lot of progress that way. And then, of course, it also goes down to mention the administrative burden, the manual processing that goes on. And Lord knows I have experience of that. Again, as in my first role as an analyst, it was a lot of manual processing, lots of lookups and VLOOKUPs in spreadsheets. And then later on, when we had a decent database, I could actually use some SQL to query that. There was still a lot of manual work to be done to get the right data out in a way that we could use in different ways. So in all of these e-learning modules, you have these blocks that you can expand down, sort of a grey block with a cross and a title. Top one here, data integration systems. Just going to expand that and take a look. Legacy systems. Hands up everybody who hates the very phrase legacy systems, never mind the thing itself. It's a big issue. It's a very big issue that we have systems that were designed to do one thing. They pretty much do that one thing, but they don't share, they don't play nicely with anything else. And if you want data out of those, then it's, again, a manual process. Somebody has to write a special report for you, and you get a spreadsheet, which is more or less what you wanted, and you then have to manually stitch that into something else. So integration systems are becoming more popular now within councils. It's something that can sit in the middle and can talk to the legacy systems. So rather than have to replace your specific system with one that has an API or a new reporting tool or can be accessible in some other way, you can get this one thing which can sit in the middle and can talk to everything else and pull that data through. So that means that hopefully everybody has access to the data that they need in one place, or everyone has access to a version of data that's been pulled from multiple sources and can be very useful. An example here is the Camden Residence Index, which is brilliant, and that can talk to 16 different systems and pull the data together. So they've reduced a lot of their administrative burden, sped up the service, and can now compare cases and start to detect fraud and error across the services that they're delivering. A similar example at Devon, and I think quite a few people are looking at this sort of thing, is matching information from different systems that deal with the different ways that children require services from the council. So education, children's social care, perhaps public health. to say that if we're dealing with a child in one service area, actually what else is relevant about them, we might need to know about what other professionals might be involved and who needs to know about what aspects of whatever's going on in that child's life. So, and again, I will, if I can find some other examples, I'll talk about those a little bit later. So, closing that one down. Do we have any questions? I'm seeing bigger comments, but...
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Let's see. Has Gary now been able to join?
Yes, I'll let you know.
Excellent. Hi, Gary. So the next thing, going on to expanding the next block, data portals. So data portals sound quite big, scary, and complicated, and above all expensive, but they really don't have to be. And this is a hobby horse of mine as well. Portal is just a posh word for window. Depending how science fiction you want to get, dimension to another world, but we'll stick with window. It's a way of making what you have available and accessible to the right people. And I think that the intention here is to have sort of a couple of different types of portal explained. Integrating information together and then presenting a unified view to staff and to partners is one type of portal, and that obviously has got to have its uses. So if you have staff who are out in the field, if you have people who are on mobile devices, who can't access a full system through the corporate network, or if you have people who are working remotely, then you need some sort of portal so people can look at that information. And again, this is about accessibility. And then the other type of portal obviously is around open data. So what are we publishing? What are we showing to people, and how easy is it for those people to find it? And you can, multiple suppliers now, vendors, we've got good data portal products on the market, and we'll come and talk to you about your requirements and set something up for you. But your data publishing and making your data available can be as simple as just using your website CRM and just having links to the data sets on a web page. Or if any of you are aware of GitHub, which is a product that uses Git technology to share versions of files. We use that at Devon quite a lot because it's something that developers know and work with. So if it's data they want to use in applications, GitHub suits them very well. So there are cheap or free ways of doing this too. And knowing that data can be easily found gives people confidence. It gives, if it's internal, it gives colleagues confidence that somebody somewhere has the definitive version, knows what the information is, and that they can find it. If you're talking about external data, publishing and sharing, it gives residents and businesses confidence that you put your money where your mouth is, basically. You talk about transparency and you're doing the thing. And they know that if they do a Google search for your council name plus open data, that something will pop up and say, yes, here it is. Here's everything that we're required to give you, plus maybe a little bit more. And it can build really good relationships locally with people knowing that you have done the thing, you have actually put that information out there, and that you're open to a conversation about the state of the data or about the availability of the next thing that they might ask for.
So just before we move on,
yeah.
We have a question from Peter Whitehouse, who says, I still find too many data protection app blockers to put the data together. What would you say is the best approach?
Okay, Data Protection Act is the boogeyman under the bed, isn't it, when it comes to data sharing? So the first point is that people will use and will quote Data Protection Act to say, I'm not going to do this basically because I'm afraid I will get into trouble. People are rarely difficult for the sake of being difficult. I know it can be hard to believe, but they have their reasons for being nervous about this. And quite rightly, Data Protection Act is law, and you can get into trouble. But what I have found effective, and what other people have found effective, is to say to that person, right, show me the relevant part of the Act, chapter and verse, that says you cannot share this with me because whatever reason. And if you can do that, I will respect that. And I think that this has been found in central government as well, that the person has come back and said, actually, it kind of seems that maybe we can share. So yeah, data protection, I think that a good data sharing agreement, internal or external with a partner, should make people less nervous. Yeah, there's no easy answer. I'm sorry to say, there's no magic wand. You can't sort of just stomp in and insist that people do it because you're right and they're wrong, even if you are right and they are wrong. But yeah, there's two things. Quote me chapter and verse, and people may then reconsider, and well, let's have a data sharing agreement, because people have an expectation that if they give the data to the council, that we will do sensible things with it and we'll communicate with each other where necessary. And I know that outside the council, and people who haven't worked in local government will frequently say things like, don't you people talk to each other? They expect that we would reasonably share certain types of information in order to make sure that they get the right service at the right time. So I hope that helps. That's my two sort of thoughts on that, if that makes sense.
So Tim Adams from LGA has also added in, as I'm sure you can see, also talk to the Centre of Excellence in Information Sharing, because they're doing good work in building strategies for data protection management. So that's another source for you. Oh,
okay, excellent. Did everybody catch that? Because I'm closer to the mic than Emily is. The Centre of Excellence in Information Sharing. And Tim from the LGA suggests that you look up. And also, I should say, hopefully you have an information governance team or officer within your council who can tell you exactly where you should stand with any request to share data, or with any issues you're having with getting somebody to share data. And it might be good to get a corporate stance or ruling on this and say, like, in this scenario, if you use this form, this template data sharing agreement, then it should be fine, just get on with it. So some possible routes there.
What about privacy impact assessments, as Jamie has recommended?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've recently came up against, well, not against this, that sounds aggressive. My information governance team have asked me to do a privacy impact assessment because I want to look at some data which does contain staff's personal information. I'm not interested in the personal information bit. It just so happens the extract I'm going to get will contain staff names. And I've had to fill in that form, and actually that was really helpful for me. So there are tools, there are forms, and there are templates, and there are processes that your information governance experts internally will be able to point you to make sure that if you're going to share, that everybody is reassured and is comfortable. Jamie's also pointed out that the Information Commissioner's Office provide good guidance on undertaking privacy impact assessments, so that's helpful. Yeah, and from Alex, don't cut out the professionals in your own organisation. Quite right, quite right. Again, and I said, didn't I? It's about people. There are people in your organisation who can help with this. So, you know, somebody somewhere knows the best way to approach these things. Has probably been through this several times before. If it's anything like Devon, they will go, yep, I have that form right here. I printed out 20 this morning just in case. So talk to your people.
So Julie's also added that they have a Compulsory Data Protection Act module in their training, which aims to give staff the right regulations. Do you find that training is a help?
Yes, I think that it very much can be. It feels like that it should be part of an induction process, but then it should also be perhaps there should be some sort of a refresher as well. And it should be done every, say, couple of years, you know, just to remind you that this is still how we do this.
So we have another question from Simon.
Yeah.
Simon works across Suffolk's local authorities. One project he's working on is to look at data, and some councils are quite nervous about sharing this information. This is a question we get quite frequently.
Yes.
So how would you say, how do you overcome that nervousness?
Yes.
Is a data sharing agreement enough, or do you need to go further?
I think a data sharing agreement, if it's a good one, should be enough. And when I say a good one, I think it should be one that says these are the scenarios that may come up, and if they come up, this is how we will deal with them. So something that gives an idea of how problems or issues will be dealt with, and who is the person to talk to if there's a problem. So yeah, a data sharing agreement should be a document that makes everybody concerned look at it and go, okay, I feel like, not that nothing will go wrong, because, you know, we don't live in the sort of universe where nothing ever goes wrong, but that if this particular thing goes wrong, this is the process that we follow. If this particular thing goes wrong, then this is the person who will be accountable and who will deal with it. So to give everybody some reassurance that we have thought through the possible implications. I hope that helps.
Okay. That's questions for now, but I'm
Excellent.
sure there'll be some more in a minute.
Okay, wonderful. Right, so going back to the module, I was going to expand the next block, which is the Internet of Things. I don't know the nerd level of my audience, so if I'm making no sense and I've gone too high, let me know. But also, if I am speaking in sort of tiny words and baby talk, and you're a bit annoyed by that, also let me know, and we'll see if we can hit a right level for everybody to hear something interesting and useful. So if anybody doesn't know about the Internet of Things, we're basically talking about devices and sensors being connected to the internet and being able to send information up without needing sort of constant manual intervention, and being able to consume data from other sources and then do something interesting with it. So examples would be things like temperature sensors. Now, Birmingham City Council have done some good work with real-time traffic control information management, and they can actually look at a network of temperature sensors across the city, and adding that into stuff like busyness of particular routes and weather forecasts and so on. If they see that it's going to be necessary to send out the gritters, then they can use the temperature sensors to make a judgment call about where those gritters need to go first or most urgently, which probably you could do that with a combination of the weather forecast and prior knowledge of which routes tend to be an issue. But it's a little bit of extra accuracy and pinpointing about what is actually happening right now. Not forgetting, this is real-time information, so it is as good as it can get. And similarly, Bristol City Council have an organisation called Bristol is Open, which is looking at opening up data, but also doing more and better and more clever things with the data that they have. And they have a mesh network, which is sort of connecting a device in each lamppost in the city centre, such that rather than having like one big Wi-Fi hotspot, you have lots of little devices that are piggybacking off each other. Hence, it's like a net or a mesh. So that means that if you put sensors near, somewhere near one of the sensors in the network, then that data can be spread right through the network and can be used in all sorts of different places in different ways. And some of that is serious grown-up stuff like temperature sensors and air quality and so on and so forth. And I believe that other people are using it just as a sort of a fitness game. So if you pass a certain number of lampposts, then you've walked this distance and you win a shiny badge on your phone app. So lots of different ways that these things can be used. And there are other examples. If any people are listening who have got examples of ways they're using that and are upset that I've not mentioned it, stick it in the comments and we will give everybody a shout out, because this can be amazing. Other examples of connected sensors as I think it's the Oxford Flood Network. There are sensors that are looking at river levels. And these aren't council sensors, these are sort of private individuals getting this sensor and connecting it up to another network. It gives a much faster, much better sort of real-time indication of when river levels start to rise rapidly, can give advance warning of floods, which means people have more warning, more time to take preventative measures, more time to evacuate if need be. There's even the authorities, is it Rivers Agency? I forget the correct name. Will know what's going on and will have their own sensors and their own data coming in. It's just that little bit of extra action from the community to say, well, we'll put this in place and we'll do this. So the Internet of Things has massive potential to give us more information in areas where we're particularly concerned, and it's becoming a lot cheaper to do these things. And one final example that I'm aware of, again, is Bristol have put together a prototype product, which is they call them the frog boxes. So it was a Raspberry Pi, if you know about those, a sort of £25 computer with some sensors placed in a box. It looks like a frog to make it look friendly, because these are going in people's bedrooms and some sort of children's rooms. And it has a damp sensor, so it can feed up information about the level of damp in the property. And the people who have them also have a little notepad so they can write down, this day I was drying my washing indoors because it was raining, or on this day someone spilled a whole jar of water on the carpet, and maybe that's why that was a particularly damp day. And they're hoping to use that data to look at not just where specifically people have an issue with damp in their property and therefore may need some help or may need to be moved, but also they could be then pulling that data together and saying, is it a specific type of property that has this issue? Is it a particular housing provider? Is it a particular location? Is it the places near the river? Is it the places that were built in 1943? What's the pattern here? So several different ways of using that information, and extremely cheap to do. The latest version of the Raspberry Pi is £5, which is ridiculously cheap. Raspberry Pi Zero, and they're lots of fun as well. I can speak from experience. So that's Internet of Things. I'm just going to close that one down. Before I go on to talk about the next section, which is data maturity, do we have any other questions or comments?
Just ask the question that for the Internet of Things, would you say that it's only technical people that can get involved with that? Because, you know, all these words, API, IoT, it does sound very technical.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I would say no, you don't need to be an extremely technical person. It probably wouldn't hurt if you took basic electronics at O level, as I did. I only really got back into electronics and coding a couple of years ago, and I'm now a very enthusiastic amateur and learning all the time. What I have found is that the growth of hobby electronics and home suitable projects is just amazing, and there are just legions of lovely, generous, warm, helpful people on the internet who have tutorials and projects that they've done, and you know, this is how I did it, and I'm sharing my diagrams and my code here. There are books in WH Smith's and magazines about how to get started with things like Raspberry Pis and with the other devices on the market, microcontrollers like the Arduino. And Maplin sells kits. You can go in and just buy a bag of bits and come home and build yourself a little weather station or a room guard alarm, or you know, whatever your heart desires. So it'll be a little bit of a learning curve, but actually it is not as frightening as all that. And we've in fact been running some Internet of Things kind of taster events called Things Camp, which have been brilliant for just bringing people together and saying, you know, demystify it a bit, have a look at these devices, hold the thing in your hand, it won't bite, and have a go. Let's sit down and see if we can make an LED flash, or you know, make the bell ring or whatever. And people have been very encouraged by that kind of hands-on thing. So that's the long answer. The short answer is it's a bit technical, but not as technical as you'd think. And there is a lot of support if you want to have a go and get started. Okay, excellent. Right, not seeing, we'll give it a minute because of the lag. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments on that. So, nope, excellent. Right, so moving on to, we have a section now in the module on local data maturity model. Now, I personally found this really, really interesting. In the e-learning module here, we've got a quick sort of gallery to look through and the different sections. So we're looking at, there are, let me see, 5 sections. Data management is about exactly that. How do we gather and look after our data? How well organized is it, and how clean, how tidy that data is, and how discoverable. And there are 3 sections in that within sort of the collection, the organization, and the quality. And then across the top, you have the what level are you at? So the nascent is literally just emerging, blinking into the daylight and wondering what's going on. The basic is doing the very bare minimum and just beginning to get started. Intermediate is, you know, slightly more advanced again. Advanced is really starting to get there. And then datavore, which I think is a Nesta coined phrase, is people are voraciously managing their data and doing amazing things with. So that's sort of top level. So that's what's under data management. Going across, the next section is governance. And it's interesting in light of the discussion that we had about data sharing. It's not about how much you share or don't share. It is about how confident you are that you are sharing appropriately in the right places, what processes you have. Does everybody know what they are and are not doing, what they can and cannot do? Is everybody comfortable that they have followed the processes and are doing things right? Which I think that is an important point to remember. Next section after that is data use. So, and this is where a lot of organizations we're collecting a lot of data, and we may be feeding in to performance books and scorecards and dashboards and so on. But actually, is that data being actively considered and used when it comes to the decision making and to the policy making? Because that's not always the case. So at a high level in your organization, are people looking at the data and saying, this changes everything, I need to do something in a different way? Or are they looking at the charts and going, yes, squiggly line, so we'll just do what we were going to do anyway? And I think that's quite a challenge, because that's a cultural and education challenge. Some places get it, some places really get it, some places not so much. And I think that we could all do with looking at ourselves and saying, to what degree do we value and use this data? So the next section then is about skills. There's no breakdown there, and this can cover so many different things. It could be about, how good are you with spreadsheets? If all you have is spreadsheets, but you're really good with them, then you're a highly skilled organization, and spreadsheets can do a great deal. But if it turns out that different things are needed, and actually you're going to have to start looking at getting in some connecting systems and integration systems, maybe looking at building a data portal, maybe looking at having a data warehouse, then you may need some new skills. And the last couple of days I've been at different events where people have said, oh, well, of course, local government has a skills problem when it comes to data. And I get quite indignant, because I don't believe we have a skills problem. I believe that we don't know where our people are who have those skills problem. You have some very, very skilled people, some very smart people who can code, who can handle data, who can connect up systems. But that maybe is not what they were hired for, and it may not be their job description. And I'm a case in point. My job description is performance and strategy project manager. But actually, I'm a nerd, and I code, and I handle data, and I do things with dashboards, and none of those things are in my role description, but those are the things that I do. And there are people at all levels in your organization who really get this stuff. So before you start saying, oh, we need to train everybody, oh, we need to hire some new people, take a look at who you have. I guarantee you will have some very, very useful indeed people that you might not have known about beforehand. So there you go, another hobby horse. I've got several, as you can tell. All right, and the final section on this one is the awareness and culture. And we've been doing some training in Devon on this, about knowing whether the data that you've got is the right data, whether it's doing the job, whether it is helping the people at the next level up, whether it's helping you yourself do what you need to do, or whether you're simply managing because it's all you've got. And what might you change if you had the opportunity? How might you change the way that you handle it? So some roles may say that they don't need to worry about data, they just need to worry about the individual in front of them right now and what they need. Some roles only handle data, and if you're looking at analysis roles, you're looking at management information, you're looking at statisticians, business intelligence and predictive modeling. Data is all they do. But everyone in the organization should have an understanding that data does matter. So now this gallery doesn't show you how you might score yourself on this. So I'm just going to change tabs. The report that explains this is called Wise Council's, let's just change that one, Insights from the Cutting Edge of Data-Driven Local Government, which is a very long-winded title, but it's an excellent report. I would recommend that if you haven't already read it, you go get it and take a look, because page 105 is where it begins to talk about and explain what's in that data maturity model and what it means to be at a particular part, a particular stage of any of the sections. So, for example, under data management, if you look at organisation, if you are at the nascent stage, then your data is organised in silos with a limited ability to share across the council. So you can see that section there, I'm kind of waving around with my mouse cursor. And it goes across. So basic, some data can be shared more widely. Intermediate, lots of data is exported, excuse me, but requires manual integration. Advanced is most can be shared, some of it's automatically. And a data vor in the level that we can all aspire to eventually one day is, fully new data warehouse, federated data models, lots of integration, and information asset list or inventory, which is published as metadata. So we can't all get to data vor level immediately. There's going to be some work to be done, but I think that it would be very, very good, and this is a thing I plan to do at Devon, to take us through this and say, right, where are we on these things? And what would be the next thing that I would need to try to put in place, or try to ask other people to help me with to get us to the next level? And also to prioritize and say, maybe data governance we're actually very good at already, but and openness we're very good at, but we could perhaps use some work on something like performance and evaluation. And then perhaps the next thing I want to do is to look at getting some real-time data, because I would like us to get to data vor level on that one, just as an example. So definitely go and find that report. You'll find it on the Nesta site, www.nesta.org.uk, and go and look in their publications, search for Wise Council, and up it will pop. Definitely do go and read it.
So before we move on,
yep.
we have a few questions. We have a few people saying that they've not seen this before. Mm-hmm. It looks like it could be quite useful. So do you have any tips or advice for how you would get started?
With the data maturity model specifically? Yeah. I mean, I would start by getting the report and reading. I mean, I did, and it's 100 and something pages, but it is well worthwhile, not just for the data maturity model, but also because it has case studies. So if I just scroll back to the beginning, there's some general stuff, a sort of summary, and then there are specific case studies from, so we've got Camden again, we've got Newcastle, I think Bristol's in there, Manchester's in there, Birmingham, Kent, Suffolk. And each of those case studies is described in more detail towards the end of the report, saying this is what we did, this is how we did it, this is where we started on the data maturity model, and this is where we think we are now as a result. And I sat and I printed this out, and I sat and I read right through it with a highlighter and a red pen at my elbow and a pile of post-it notes. And I ended up with about 15 things of immediate interest that I then took to my head of service and said, these are the things we need to be doing. These are the new ways we need to think about what we're doing. These are the actual actions that we might want to take to get better at handling our data. These are the projects I believe we need to focus on. And she's sort of taken that on board and is now putting that through the digital delivery board that we have at Devon, to say, this is, if we want to improve how we handle our data, then we'll focus on these particular things. And she's not taken every word I've said as gospel, but she's had a look at the report, she's had a look at my summary, and she's created a policy direction, if you like, from that. So read the report, make your own notes about the things that chime with you about, yes, we could do that, or yes, we should do that, and then go and talk to some of the people who can help you to move that forward. And if possible, get them to read the report, but if they are busy people and don't have time to read a 114 whatever page PDF, then summarize it for them and say, this council, who's just like us, did this thing in this way, and I believe we would benefit from doing the same. Each of the case studies talks about the actual benefits that you see. So Newcastle's one here, early identification of adverse events. The data analysis identified the factors which can predict a child becoming NEET, so not in employment, education or training, meaning that there can be some earlier intervention to try and help children not to get onto that path in the first place. So more positive life outcomes, obviously, better outcomes later on. The Bristol frogs are in here. The impact there, of course, is in the slightly longer term. The health problems that arise from sleeping in a damp room can be negated, can be reduced. So there's less concern there. You know, if you have severe asthma, you can be hospitalised. It doesn't help you get to work or get to school. So thinking longer term, there's a definite benefit there. Shorter term benefits from Camden, and they're in here twice. More responsive services, less duplication means less money being spent on people doing the same jobs over and over again, and also picking up on identifying fraud and error, so saving money there. Faster checking to make sure that people are getting what they're entitled to, and that nobody is getting more than they're entitled to, and that has to be then clawed back.
It's also worth saying that we explore the benefits and impact in open data in the second e-learning module, or the second of this set, which we will also be exploring in a webinar on the 16th of May. Yes,
thank you, Emily, for that very good plug for the open data webinar, which will be next month. Yeah, so the benefits there are, and I think I said at the beginning, this is not necessarily just about open data today, but there are benefits to being able to find your data and do things with it, and there are benefits to being able to publish your data and get it out there to people who can do things with it that you don't have the time or the inclination to do, or simply didn't think of as being a useful thing to do. So the benefits of having your data in good order and ready to be used, I think we're only beginning to scratch the surface of things that can be done. Obvious things are, you know, the back office efficiency, so-called, saving people time. They don't have to go searching for information, it's just there. But as we begin to find ourselves with a little more space, a little more breathing room in our workday, because we're not having to manually throw things together the way that we used to, we also find ourselves with time to say, I wonder what would happen if I put this data set together with this one, and did a little bit of analysis based on what happens to people who are going through a particular process, or what happens to people from this particular group, or what happens if I look at the differences by geography, etc., etc. And we begin to have time to think about new ways to put the data together and pull out different insights from it. Right, I have, I think, talked through pretty much everything that's in the module. How are we for time?
We've got 13 minutes left,
Good
so
Lord.
if you've got
Okay.
some questions, pop them in, and we've got a couple that have come in already.
Right, okay.
Remember, just a reminder, you can post them in Knowledge Hub, or you can email us at training@theodi.org, or put them straight into the live chat. So we've got one from Emma Nichols about the data maturity model. This looks like a difficult question to me, so I hope you know the answer.
All right, then.
How would the data maturity model link with other information governance needs, like information asset registers?
Oh, okay, well, by sheer good luck, I just happened to see a mention of information asset registers as we were looking through, so I can do that one. I think it was under, bear with me while I just find the right page again. So it was in here that when you get to data vor level on, there was a particular one, yes, here we go. When you get to data vor level under data management and organization, that it says here, aside from having the data warehouse or federated data models, you also have an information asset list or inventory, which is published as metadata. And I believe, and I hope that Tim could weigh in on this one, that there is a tool for creating an actual inventory of the data that you have that is published or publishable, that you can then put out and say, this is what we've got. And it puts it out in a particular format that can be consumed by other online tools to then say, right, these councils have this data available, which can be very, very useful if you are a developer and you're looking to put together something like, a really good example being the Great British Toilet Map. I need to know all the councils who actually put out that open data set of all the public toilets, and if they've all published an inventory, an information asset list of that data, then I can very quickly find out what sort of coverage I've got for a national tool. I hope that answers the question. If not, carry on, give me a follow-up and give me a prod if you need more information.
So now we're going a bit more haphazard with the
Excellent.
questions. They're a bit all over the place. So we have a question from Adama, who says, will you be able to share your data policy direction that you discussed at your digital delivery board?
That is an excellent question. I will check back, and if I can, Adama, if you want to, you can email me, well, nudge Emily at the email address we mentioned earlier, training@theodi.org, and I will pass on anything that I can to you. I hope that's okay.
Okay, a question from Lucy in North Norfolk, and this is one close to your heart, I'm sure, Lucy. Are there any integration or infographics systems available that you don't need to be able to code to use?
Okie dokie, integration systems, that is a really good question. I need to go and read up on what integration systems there are available, because by and large, if you want something that's going to talk to some of your big data systems like your children's social care information system or Care First or anything like that, you're going to need a vendor to come in and set that up for you. And you probably personally won't need to code at all to do that. If we're talking about creating good data visualization, yes, there are absolutely tools that you can use to create really, really nice data visualization and infographics without needing to code. Top of the list being pencil and paper. Because if you have an insight around the data, you can absolutely draw up a quick prototype on the back of an envelope and say, I think this is what's happening here. And then going right to the far end, so let me see, stuff that there is available. Don't use Excel. I know it can do charts, but one, they're ugly. Two, they are counterintuitive. Three, you have to put the data into a special arrangement before it'll recognize it and do it the way you want it to. And four, they're ugly. I deliberately put that one in twice because I feel quite strongly about that. Some people are capable of doing amazing things with Excel charts, but it takes a great deal of fiddling and management, so don't do that. Devon, we are a full-on Microsoft house and we use Power BI, which you can use without knowing any code whatsoever, and that makes some really, really nice infographics and visualizations. There are other tools which have free versions if you don't mind the data being made public and open. So Tableau is one, and Plotly is another, that's plot.ly. You can put code into Tableau and Plotly if that's your type of thing, but you don't have to. And last but not least, is stuff like PowerPoint. You can make a slide and you can insert a chart into that slide and you can add the data points in, you manually type them in, you can create a chart. So that's also a very good one. And very finally, Adobe Illustrator will let you create charts. And again, you literally decide what chart you want and you plug in, you manually type in the data that you're using, and you can create quite beautiful things and infographics in that. I have somewhere, I've got a bookmarked list of good data visualization tools, which again, I can share. Email Emily at training@theodi.org with your request, and I will follow up, get back to you and share some of my favorites with you if that will be helpful.
Simon Alvin says he currently uses Picture Chart Web tool. You
okay,
that one? He does say it's a bit clunky.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I haven't used it. But yeah, there are so many on the market now that it's just amazing.
Cool. So we were also earlier discussing using the data maturity model as a self-assessment tool, and it's something that the LGA and Esther are looking at.
Yeah.
How useful do you think you personally in your role would find that?
Very, very, very helpful indeed. When I first looked at the early version of the data maturity model, my first thought was, where is the next bit? And building on the ODI pathway tool that says, if this is where you are right now with your open data publishing, then the next thing you might want to do is talk to your senior leaders about getting some support or whatever. And it actually goes on and says, here is the next step you could take. to move your organization to the next level on that particular section. So I would very much like to see something similar done with this data maturity model that says, right, if you are looking at your, let's say, data management collection, and you're currently at basic, and you want to move along to intermediate or even further, then you're going to want to look at doing a particular thing that makes sure the data is then used for strategic decision-making, horizon scanning. And here is a thing you might do. Here are some suggested actions you might take. So I think it's a really good model. I think it's got potential to be really helpful. And I would like to see something that says, if you want to get to the next step, here is a pragmatic action. Here is a thing you can do to move yourself along. Okay, 5 minutes left.
5 minutes left. Earlier you mentioned some tools or things that you might talk about in more detail if you had some more time left.
Yes.
Now a time for that?
Now could be a time for that if no one else has got any other questions at the moment. So I think that I was talking about the things that can help you get your data in order and help you to share it more effectively, that don't have to cost a fortune. So I mentioned Git and GitHub. GitHub sometimes scares people because it's mainly about sharing code and about developing code and writing software and so on and so forth. And you might look at it and say, well, no, that's really not for me. But we've had really good experiences with using it to share data sets in a quick and simple way. And one of the reasons that I recommend it is that it is a great way of making sure that people who might use your data can communicate with you and can help you. So it's not a one-sided thing. It's not a publishing, a broadcasting medium. It is a collaborating medium. And the example that I like the best is when we had a community web page that was about assets, land and building property assets that the council was considering divesting. And if community groups would like to sort of take on an old building that we didn't need anymore, then we could come to some arrangement. And the thing with the webpage was that we had a map that said, here are the buildings that we're considering. And let us know, you can express your interest and click on this and et cetera, et cetera. And I asked some of my friends in the open data community to take a look and to be as critical as possible, to give us some good feedback. And one of the bits of feedback was, your map is alter-cock, everything's in the wrong place. Only by about, sort of 200 yards or so, but still, sometimes this matters. And what have you done, basically? Another friend looked at it and said, well, I think that what you've done there is you've used the wrong map projection when you've done a conversion to latitude, longitude, so everything is slightly off. And then the beautiful thing happened was that a third friend, who's a developer, said, I see that you've actually got the data set in GitHub. I've just run a script that corrects your map projection. So if you accept my pull request, which is when someone makes a change to your code or your file and says, here, take my changes, you accept my pull request, your data will be correct. So we did, and it was. And that was just amazing that it was fixed by somebody with more skills than me. And all I had to do to make that happen was to open that data and say, here's what we have. Feel free to help us make it better. So I'd encourage you to look at GitHub. I would encourage you to look at some of the tools that Open Data Institute puts out to help you get your data in better order. Emily's writing a note for me.
Oh no.
No, just writing down GitHub, okay. So there's the ODI pathway, which is about getting better at publishing your open data and about getting better quality open data out there. Absolutely also helps with just getting all of your data, including the internal and the closed and the private stuff, in better order. And always remember that open data is on a spectrum. It's not a binary thing, either open or closed. It's on a spectrum. Some data you want to share, but only with certain people. Some data you want to keep very secure, but 1 or 2 people need to see it. Some data you never want to share. And some data you just want, why wouldn't you share it? Why wouldn't you get that out there so people can do useful things with it? So any work you do on improving data with a view to sharing it, publishing it, and having other people look at it is also going to benefit anyone within your organization or within a specific closed group who needs to use other data that you've got. Take that attitude to all of your data. and things will improve generally, and then you can consider what's suitable for sharing or for publishing.
So from open to close with our absolute final question.
Okay.
Is there a future step to becoming a commercial seller of data?
Goodness, good question. A future step to becoming a commercial seller of data. Okay, the first step is if you're going to commercially sell your data, then your data has to be very good indeed. You're asking people to part with money for data, and you are competing against other people who have been doing it for longer and are better at it than you are. Nothing personal, but as councils, we're not really commercial. So none of us are very good at this. You are going to have to be absolutely certain that that data has real value to people who are looking for it and who might want to pay for it. You're going to have to be absolutely certain that it is as good as it can be. It's structured, it's machine readable, it is validated, and that you're going to keep putting it out there. You're not going to do it for 6 months and then your organizational structure will change, or a different person will come in and be in charge of it, and we'll go, yeah, that's not a priority right now. You're going to have to put yourself in a commercial mindset. So all data and technical considerations aside, be absolutely sure this is a thing you want to do and that you're going to want to do for a very long time from now. If you intend to make a business of it, then you're going to have to really maintain it.
So I think that's all the questions that we have time for. So it's just time to wrap up.
Okay, should we go back to cameras? There we go again. So I hope that was useful. I hope that was relevant. Thank you very much, all of you, for your questions and your comments. Do now again, I would repeat, feedback to the Local Government Association, any thoughts about how the webinar was, anything we did well, anything we did badly, anything we could do differently. We're running it again this afternoon, so any feedback you want to give us before then, that'd be very welcome. transparency@local.gov.uk is the email address. Anything I promised rashly to send you or tell you about, email Emily, training@theodi.org. She will make sure I don't forget and that I give you the information that I promised and share what I can. And I think that is it. Thank you very much, everybody. That was really good.
One comment I just
one
missed.
Comment.
Very sorry.
Okay.
So from Islington, for data skills capacity, it might be useful for Nesta to contact Bruce Elliott, NHS Digital.
Okay.
This is someone who ran a pilot on social care informatics with skills for care.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that one. That could be very useful. Informatics with skills for care. Okay. Yeah.
So thanks, Alex, for that.
Yeah,
comment.
thank you. I will look that one up and maybe mention it this afternoon as well. So that would be very good. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.
Done?
Yep. Bye.